to not be compassionate. Basically, the opposite of all of our biblical values seem to be the values and the pressure that the world puts on Christians. But as leaders, we need to keep the grip, and we need to teach others to do so as well. What is up, and welcome back to the Next Gen podcast. Welcome to a new year. We're ready to go, and it is so good to have you here with me today. Episode 4 of the Next Gen podcast. If we've never met before, my name is Harry, and it is awesome to have you here with me today. If you haven't checked out any of our other episodes, I strongly encourage you to do so. We've got especially the last episode's Q&A podcast. It is so good, so much wisdom. Also, Annaliese controversially with the love, like, and leave. You need to make sure you check that out if you haven't done so already. Have a look at that. It is worth the watch. Hey, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or any of our other platforms, it is so good to have you here with us today. No matter where you are around the world, massive welcome to you. Also, a special welcome to all of the NextGen Nation members, all 40 of our elite podcast community members. You know who you are. Welcome back to the show. It's good to have you here with us today. If you'd like to join the NextGen Nation, this ever-growing community of NextGen pastors and leaders, you can register for free. When you register for free online at harrysladennz.com, that's harrysladennz.com. When you register online for free, you'll get free copies of the show notes and the ability to interact with the Q&A episodes, ask your questions by recording audio, or just by sending them in to us. You can do that all by heading to the website harrysladennz.com, look for the Next Gen Nation or look for the Next Gen podcast, register for free, and you can be a part of our Next Gen Nation as well. Hey, if you're a kids pastor, Sid the Sloth, Ice Age, throwback, like that's an old reference. I need to get newer references. If you're a kids pastor, youth pastor, young adults pastor, or a leader in any one of these areas, my prayer is that this podcast is going to bless you big time. We don't know everything here on the Next Gen podcast, but we do know something, and hopefully that something is your one thing that you need to help break through. Hey, a massive thank you to everyone who's posted about the Next Gen podcast on social media, reposting the reels that we release. Thank you so much for doing that. It helps get it out far and wide. Make sure when you do, you tag me at Harry Slade NZ on socials, and I'll repost you. Okay, our Next Gen episode today, keep the grip. That's what we're talking about today, keep the grip. And after the last podcast, the Q&A podcast, or maybe it was the first Q&A podcast that we had, and it took me a while to get to the actual outro. In the outro of the podcast, afterwards, Annaliese was like, well, what does keep the grip actually mean? And I was like, well, keep going, I'm just keep on going, keep the grip, I've been using it as a catchphrase to the Next Gen Nation for a while. It just makes sense to me. Like, this is just, it is what it is. And Annaliese was like, is that all? Like, isn't there more to it than that? And so over the summer break, I've been simmering on what it means to actually keep the grip. And at the end of all of my simmering, my summation of my simmering is that I actually believe that as leaders in 2024 and beyond, we desperately need to be those who keep the grip. When we say keep the grip, it means 3 things. Number 1, perseverance under pressure. Number 2, grip the why. And number 3, hold on to the right things. Okay? Those things again, perseverance under pressure. Grip the why and hold on to the right things. Keep the grip. That's what we're talking about today in episode number 4, keep the grip. So let's start with the first one, perseverance under pressure. Jesus made it really clear that as Christians, we're going to face pressure in all sorts of different ways. Matthew 24, verse 9 to 12, in the New Living Translation, Jesus says this, then you'll be persecuted, arrested, and killed. In a different order. He said, then you'll be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You'll be hated all over the world because you are my followers, and many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. Do you know what that sounds like to me, what Jesus is saying here in Matthew 24? It sounds like a whole lot of pressure. And the reality is that in 2024 and beyond, this pressure isn't likely to decrease. As Christian leaders, we're going to have this pressure on and fall on our shoulders. Questions are going to be asked of us. Accusations are going to be made. And it's enough pressure when you read what Jesus says to make you want to pass on leadership, to make you want to pass on investing into the next generation. But Jesus then says this in 24:13. He says, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. This gets me really excited. Like for us, if we endure, if we keep the grip, if we persevere to the end, we're going to be saved. So we have to keep the grip. I wonder if this is a bit negative and a bit heavy to start the year off with a new podcast, so maybe some more encouragement is required. John 16:33 says, I have told you all of this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart because I have overcome the world. This is the encouragement. We can keep the grip. We can persevere through the pressure because Jesus has already overcome the world. As leaders, we have to help people go further than what they could on their own. As leaders, if we can't persevere through the pressure, our people that we lead can't either. And if our people can't, they're going to be the ones who get led astray and who fall away. So we have to keep the grip. We must persevere through the pressure. Perseverance is one of those important qualities a Christian needs. I would say even more than that, perseverance is actually one of the most important qualities a Christian needs. Why do I say that? Well, look at this in Romans 5:3-4 in the NIV. It says, not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. There's our key word. And look at this. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. Maybe the reason that Christians around the world are lacking in strong character is because they're lacking in perseverance. I mean, we know this to be true. Like if you see someone who struggles with their character, it's likely that they can't persevere or have a low perseverance tolerance. But someone who has high perseverance, someone who has the ability to persevere through the pressures, it's likely that they've got a strong character. What do I mean by character? Well, character is defined in the dictionary by the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual. Things like integrity, respect, responsibility, courage, compassion, humility, fairness, generosity, gratitude, loyalty, self-control, empathy. All of these attributes that I've just read out are attributes of a strong or good character. In fact, perseverance actually helps develop this type of character. And you know all the things that I've just listed? All of those values are biblical values. So for us as Christians, a good character is defined by biblical values. So pressure's going to come, right? Pressure from the world to bend and change these biblical values, to stop being integral, right? We could go through that list. To stop being integral, to show disrespect, to not take responsibility, to not have courage, to not be compassionate. Basically, the opposite of all of our biblical values seem to be the values and the pressure that the world puts on Christians. But as leaders, we need to keep the grip, and we need to teach others to do so as well. Why? So that our perseverance develops character, developing stronger and deeper Christians. So that's the first thing. We need to persevere through the pressure. We keep the grip. The second one is that we need to grip the why. When we say keep the grip, what we're saying is don't let go of the why. Why do you do what you do? We've talked about this a little bit already on the podcast. Our why as NextGen pastors and leaders is to point people to the person of Jesus. Why? Because he is the hope of the world. Jesus is the answer. We need to keep the grip when we're dealing with kids who don't want to behave in church. We have to keep the grip and remember that Jesus is the answer. It's worth the struggle that we're facing. When we're dealing with suicidal teenagers, we need to remember that Jesus is the answer. We need to keep the grip and we need to remember it's worth the struggle. When we're dealing with a team member who's difficult, Jesus is the answer. It's worth the struggle. We need to keep the grip. When young adults who keep on sleeping around, and that's our responsibility as leaders to help lead them through that, well, we need to keep the grip. We need to remember that Jesus is the answer and it's worth the struggle that we face. When we're walking with someone who's dealing with drugs and alcohol abuse, keep the grip. Jesus is the answer. It's worth the struggle. The list could go on and on and on. And while these things require not just a faith-based response, but actually an action-based response, while people are going to need to do something to help themselves heal, as leaders, we can't actually do that for them. Our answer, our solution as leaders is Jesus. To stand in prayer with someone, to offer biblical perspective on their current situation, to listen and encourage them in their situation, and to lead people to what Jesus thinks about it and says about it. There's nothing better for us as leaders than seeing someone who has been struggling, encounter Jesus, and see them come alive in faith and in hope. You and I, we have to, as leaders, as next-gen leaders and pastors, we have to keep the grip. We have to keep gripping the why, because when struggles are high, or when things seem repetitive, or when there seems to be no answer, there is. Keep the grip. Jesus is the answer. So the first thing is to persevere through the pressures. The second thing is to grip the why. And the third thing, is to grip the right things. And this one is the toughest one out of all three. Why? Because to truly keep the grip, we need to know what to let go. Matthew 10:34-39, Jesus says this, "Don't imagine that I came to bring peace to the earth. I came not to bring peace, but a sword. I have come to set man against his father, and daughter against his mother, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Your enemies will be right in your own household. If you love your father or mother more than you love me, you're not worthy of being mine. Or if you love your son or daughter more than me, you're not worthy of being mine. So if you refuse to take up your cross and follow me, you are not worthy of being mine." Verse 39 says, "If you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for me, you will find it." What are you gripping right now? What is it that you are holding on to in your hands? See, as next-gen leaders and pastors, we keep the grip by letting go of everything that's not God and gripping onto his hand. Psalm 68 verse 3 says, "I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me." We need to keep the grip on the right things. And the right thing is a someone, and his name is Jesus. And that's where we find life. The truth is, though, you can't grip onto Jesus if your hands are already full. Like if you're holding on to stuff, right? And you've got your hands full of stuff, and you're like, yeah, Jesus, I want to grip onto you. I want to keep the grip onto you. But we're holding on to these things. There's no way we can actually grip onto Jesus. We have to let go of some of the things that this world has to offer us. We have to let go of the cares. We have to let go of the worries, let go of the pressures, the stresses, the family drama. Because if we want to access the life that Jesus promised us, life in all its fullness, that's found when we keep the grip, when we keep the right grip, when we grip onto Jesus and we let go of everything else. We have to let it all go, guys. We have to let it go, entrusting it to God and keep the grip on Jesus. Listen, in every season as next-gen leaders, we need to keep the grip. Keep the grip. Don't quit. Keep the grip. Okay, in summary, as we bring this podcast to a close, we need to keep the grip. Number one, perseverance under pressure. We are all going to face pressure. Every Christian leader, every non-Christian, pressure is what we're going to face. And as leaders, we need to keep the grip and persevere through all the pressure that comes our way. We teach people to do the same, especially if we're leading them. Why? Because perseverance produces character. If Christians are going to stand in the days to come, they are going to need a stronger character built on biblical values, developed through perseverance. The second thing is we need to grip the why. Why we do what we do is to point people to the person of Jesus. Seeing people set free by his love, mercy, and power is our reward. And there are things that people need to do, but we can't do it for them. They're going to have to persevere through whatever it is that they need to do physically. And we need to keep the grip and point them to Jesus along the way. And the third thing is we need to hold on to the right things. To truly keep the grip, we need to know what to let go. Letting go of the things of the world so we can grip onto Jesus for ourselves. We can't grip onto Jesus if our hands are already full. So what do you need to let go of today? Friend, this is not easy, but if we can keep the grip in 2024 and beyond, if we can nail these things, we're going to be better leaders, better pastors, and we're going to raise stronger and deeper Christians as we go through this journey of life. Thank you so much for joining me today. That is it for the podcast. Make sure if you haven't done so already, you register to be part of the Next Gen Nation. It's an awesome space. We've got lots of plans in 2024 for the Next Gen Nation. You can get free copies of the show notes so that you don't have to take notes of the podcast, and you can use them as leadership lessons for your team in 2024 and beyond. Hey, that is it though for this. Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't done so already, make sure you follow along on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Rate the podcast. If you found this on YouTube and you thought it was great, feel free to like this episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All of that helps promote this far and wide. And make sure you tag us as well. So take a screenshot, share this on social media, share it with your team, and get it out far and wide. This is a free resource, again, that we want to just bless people with, so make sure that you do that. But that's it for now. Listen, every Next Gen leader, be encouraged. Your story is changing history, leading the legacy, and changing the tide. So don't quit. Keep the grip. And I'll see you very soon on the Next Gen podcast. Peace.